to defuse. Where is Miracles? Oh, Miracles!
I did it! He's gonna go for the toss! He got it!
Shadow will win!
Oh my god!
The Call of Duty community is currently on a massive outrage toward the CWL regarding a number of different things, whether it's been bans, whether it's been fines, whether it's been, connectivity issues. The entire CWL for Stage 2, at many fans' opinions, has been looked upon as a joke for a number of different reasons. So today what I'm going to be doing is talking about either side, whether it's the fans' opinions, the players' opinions, along with the CWL's opinions on certain things, and try to come up with a way that maybe we can mend those and make the CWL a much more easier process to where everyone understands what's going on and the reason why certain things are happening. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a number of different things because there have been a lot of topics that have really been going on that I was thinking about making a video about. I was talking about, maybe making one about the fines, whether it's Karma's fine, not really just fine, but forfeits that he's even had to have against their matchup that's supposed to happen versus DT, which not going to be the case. I can make a video about that. So the first thing we can talk about is going to be player fines, maybe even forfeits as well, because throughout the entire stage, there's been many fines that have been awarded to players of Optic Gaming. I believe Iggs has received one. I believe Fizzerp has received a few, and I'm sure we've had a number of different ones that have gone unnoticed because of players just not really wanting to be vocal about it, saying, hey, I just got fined by the CWL, what is this? And then they fine them again and again, and it's not going to happen. But you get my point, right? There's a number of different fines that go on for a number of different reasons because of the outlandish slandering of the CWL coming from social media, coming from Twitter, because the reason why players are outraging themselves and being ticked off about certain things is because they feel like their voice isn't being heard. I think we can all kind of agree on that, right? Because when it comes down to players, when it comes down to teams right now in the CWL, the reason why they're getting so frustrated for a number of different reasons, whether it's been a forfeit, whether it's been connectivity issues and the CWL isn't addressing certain things, whatever it has been throughout the entire league, the players feel like they don't have an outreach toward the CWL, to where the fact that they feel like their voices are being heard, to where the fact that their complaints aren't being heard by the CWL. So that's when they result to making YouTube videos, when they result to making tweets, and since those haven't been apparently viewed either, that's when they start to get really ticked off and just completely let the CWL, in their opinion, have it. And throughout the entire season, the reason why I'm going to be talking about Optic Gaming more, presently is because they're basically the biggest team in the world right now, obviously, as far as competitive Call of Duty is concerned, along with their social media presence around the competitive scene as well. Because if you have a regular player who's tuning out about certain things, granted, you're going to have a number of different people, like thousands and thousands of people see that. When it comes down to Optic Gaming players, you're seeing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who are viewing this, and when people look up to these guys, because of course they do, they look up to pro players in their positions, positions that they really want to be in, especially Optic Gaming players, through their YouTube presence, everything, they automatically side with them because they know who they are, because they don't know who the CWL is, they don't know who Call of Duty World League is. The only thing that they know are the ambassador casters that come out and talk about the issues that are happening, which they can't necessarily do all the time, because when it comes into connectivity issues, when it comes into hosting, as much as we would love, and as much as I would love to even talk about those things as well, being a caster and saying, connectivity issues are obviously coming in, it makes the matches not entertaining to watch, because it's almost, when you do that, when you're not talking about certain things of who's hosting and whatnot, granted, everyone would love to know, the casters would love to say it, everyone would love to say, oh, the reason why John is doing so well is because of the fact, because he's host right now, when in generality, we all know that that's the case, we all know that that's happening, but we can't speak upon it because it's not a professional thing to do. And I know that's going to tick some people off and say, you know what, it doesn't matter if it's a professional thing to do. You should just say it in the first place. You should let everyone know that the reason why he's doing so well isn't because of his skill, it's because of his internet. I'm not targeting or hating on John, I'm just using him as an example of what I've heard people talk about before, right? But it's hard for the casters, it's a hard position for them to be in because they don't really know if they should be saying this or not. I'm sure the CWL might be telling them information that we don't even know. And when it comes down to players, dropping their connection, when certain things have happened, I always think, of course, about the Luminosity thing where Saints, I believe his connection ended up dropping, shortly after he even goes over and literally rents a hotel to play in. And by the time that he's rented it, he's getting ready to get set up, and the CWL says, sorry, you've been forfeited. And that really ticked him off, of course, because it makes a perfect example of why he's ticked off. Because you know what? I'm literally trying to go over to a different place to make sure that this match happens for you, and of course for the record as well, but for you guys, and then you turn around and forfeit me, it's kind of like, in some ways, in their opinion, a slap in the face. And don't get me started about the number of different things that have happened with the CWL. It's not that just these things have been piling up over like the past few weeks, the past few months, that the CWL hasn't necessarily upholded their promises. I don't know exactly what has been told to the players about, Call of Duty Championships, what's been told about end-game stuff for them, as far as, camos and certain things that I've heard come from streams that I don't know is necessarily 100% true, that they've apparently been told by the CWL is going to happen, and they haven't received that. So it's not just like, oh, these things are piling up over a short period of time. It's something that's been happening in the players' opinions throughout this entire season, when they were told that the Call of Duty World League, prize pool for COD Champs, or COD XP, is going to be $2 million, but with no crowdfunding, at least that we've heard from this point. So there's been a lot of communication errors. That's actually the main topic that we're going to be talking about today, is the communication barrier between the Call of Duty World League and the players themselves. When it comes into the fans, when it comes into the stream, the only people who they see, the fans see, the stream sees, is the casters. That's why you're going to see a lot of slander come on those guys, and honestly, they don't really deserve it, because it's not their fault that these things are happening. They're just basically telling what's going on. They're not the ones making the decisions in the background. I'm not defending them because I'm a fellow caster. I'm just defending them because I know the situation that they're in, and the situation that I've been when it comes down to certain events, because everyone's saying, Landon, why are you such an idiot? Why isn't this person connecting? Why can't you guys get the messages and not pop up on stream? When in generality, it's not necessarily your responsibility to do it, but your whole job as a caster is to take the responsibility of everyone around you and be the spokesman for that particular company. There's a lot of built-up emotions that have been coming from the players, been coming from the community, whether it's been on Twitter, whether it's been on Reddit, whether it's been on YouTube. A lot of people who have constantly been saying, Call of Duty World League, where are you guys at? Why are you not defending the players here? Why are we having so many issues? And I'm actually going to post a link down in the description to the amount of forfeits. It's actually a list of forfeit/matches with problems during the Call of Duty World League Stage 2 that involves 11 teams, everyone except for Cloud9, and it gives you an exact example as to how many problems that we've had throughout this entire season regarding connectivity, regarding forfeits, regarding everything. I'm going to have that link down in the description. It's actually a competitive, our COD competitive Reddit post, and I'll have that down in the description for you guys to check out if you guys would like to. So it's there if you guys are interested. So, like I said, we talked about a number of different things. We've talked about the communication errors that have obviously been going on. That's the reoccurring issue that I'll be bringing up as the video does continue to go on for. But like I said, we talked about the fines. We talked about the players being in a spot where they feel like they're being treated unfairly. To me, the way that we solve this communication issue, right? I've been talking about this entire thing without actually really giving it away. And in my opinion, we need something like a players union. Essentially what a players union is going to do, I don't even know what you call it, right? But we need some type of system to where we have players come together as a group and say, you know what? We have to make decisions for ourselves and come to the Call of Duty World League, maybe even have a spokesperson maybe from the Call of Duty World League who revolves in player relations and stuff like that, because the players' opinions obviously aren't being heard. Because if they were, then we wouldn't see tweets constantly be composed, we wouldn't see things constantly happening, and maybe if there is someone like that, maybe they're not doing their job correctly, or maybe it's just the communication isn't there the way it should be. Also, the reason why I talk about why we should have a players union, or at least a players group together, is the issue when it comes down to gentlemen's agreements, which obviously I've already talked about in the past, but gentlemen's agreements to me are a huge, terrible thing when it comes down to Call of Duty. The fact that players have to step in for what is the competitive scene and take away what they believe is not a competitive thing to have in. Whether it's weapons, specialists, equipment, whether it's been like trip mines, shock charges, whatever you really want to throw out there, haymakers, whatever it has been throughout this entire, Black Ops 3 season. We've seen it at times where they knock out a certain couple things. We'll take out an LMG, we'll take out a rocket launcher, we'll take out UAVs and stuff like that. We'll take out a care package. We'll take out stuff that's the first level. But we shouldn't have this Aches rules mentality. We should be having that stuff. The Call of Duty World League should come together with someone. Who are they going to do that with? Maybe a players union. That would be a great idea, right? They come together and they form a full-on system as things that are competitive compared to things that aren't competitive. But we need to obviously have that last a certain amount of time. Maybe we go a month, 2 months with trying to find which things are competitive and which things aren't. Because in the beginning of the game, everyone's like, active camo is stupid, vision pulse is stupid, kinetic armor is stupid, heat wave is like, everything, and as far as specialists are concerned, were considered things that we don't want to have. And now as the Call of Duty World League has kind of gone on, people have gotten used to certain things. Granted, heat wave is still a major thing that people talk about and how stupid they think it is and so on and so forth. And then, that's your opinion, obviously. So imagine that we have that happen, right? Because we've had the Call of Duty World League, whenever they do their show on Thursdays, they've had, in the beginning of like stage 1, they had a number of different players who live in the California area, players like Parasite, Attach, I think even Nadeshot showed up for one of their, recaps and stuff like that. I guarantee you that we would not be having this talk right now when it comes down to the issues that Optic Gaming and 100 Thieves, because this was obviously what's resulting. The reason why Karma was fine, the reason why Crimson 6, I've heard, was, obviously suspended him and Karma were heading into their match versus DT, was because of their comments regarding what has happened with 100 Thieves, saying this was a joke. I think I even watched Crim6's video after the 100 Thieves game was over, and he was like, you know what, I came from a family gathering to come to this match when it's not even a competitive match because they're not agreeing to actuals, not agreeing to what is the gentleman's agreements that we have right now in Call of Duty. The competitive integrity was completely thrown out when it came down to the Optic Gaming 100 Thieves match. Why? Because they've been going that way throughout the entire season. We haven't had an issue with players doing this. Of course, when it comes to the amateur scene, we've had that happen with teams like Panda, with teams like Vex. We've seen that happen a number of different times. We shouldn't even have to be worrying about that, is my entire opinion. So we've had this system to where we kind of came together and we came at the Call of Duty World League and said, hey, these are the things that we would like to be involved. Here are actuals. Here are whatever playlist that we have of things we want to see in the league, then we would have never had the issue. We would have had Optic Gaming most likely 3-1, 100 Thieves, maybe even 3-0 them because of the search and destroy. I'm not really sure how that would have went. Either way, Optic Gaming would have won that game versus 100 Thieves 9 times out of 10. Then we would have never had the issue of Optic Gaming, going on a rant during the game, after the game. We never saw the fine come into play. We never would have seen the suspension come into Karma's case, and I've heard it's coming to Crim6 as well. I'm not even sure on that. And the reasoning why we saw 100 Thieves do that is because they obviously realized that their season essentially is already over, because why they have such a terrible record involving, everyone knows uplinks and CTFs are not good at. That's kind of held them back through the entire season. They resulted in roster changes, so they really don't care what happens with their Call of Duty World League run at this point, because they're already eliminated no matter what happens. If they go 3-0 for the next week, it's not going to matter because they're already not qualified. So they're resulting in doing whatever they want to. They want to have a good time. So they're disobeying gentlemen's agreements. They're running a number of different things, strategies, shock charges, whatever, haymakers, whatever you want to really target. They were using a number of different things. I think even awareness, like search and destroy, which is kind of like banned out essentially in the gentlemen's agreements rules. They were disobeying that, and that was obviously a major issue, and that kind of sent the fans on rise. Why is 100 Thieves trying to result in these strategies? They're such a bad team. They don't have any competitive integrity whatsoever. And of course, Optic Gaming narrowly ended up beating 100 Thieves, and I cannot imagine if they would have lost, what would have happened. But still, Optic Gaming narrowly ends up beating 100 Thieves. We end up seeing a rant, numerous amount of YouTube videos coming in from Crim6, coming in from Karma, tweets as well coming in from the Optic Gaming players, and that resulted in Karma getting a suspension in their matchup, which will be coming later on the next week versus DT. Now, the reason why this is such a big deal, and the reason why we're talking about it, and this wouldn't even be the case if it was against another team that was already solidified in the top 8 right now. But the reason why, now actually I'll pull up the standings right now. I'll have a link in the description to Con Esports Wikis. You guys can see the current standings and stuff, link to what I'm looking at right now, and obviously have it pop up on screen. Is that right now we have 2 teams who are in a massive fight, technically 3 if you really want to throw Cloud9 in there, but 2 teams specifically who are in that 8th and 9th position, which are right now DT and Luminosity Gaming. Luminosity have had a number of different problems throughout this entire season, regarding forfeits. Like I said, I talked about Saints earlier. The reason why it's such a big deal is that if Optic Gaming forfeits their game versus DT, that completely throws the standings out the window in some cases, because now DT has a free W, because now they're 11-10 as far as record is concerned, and they're also now 43-40 when it comes down to their map record. So if I believe Luminosity Gaming loses, I believe like 1 or maybe even 2 maps against their next 2 opponents in this next week, if DT gets a free W, then automatically Luminosity Gaming is screwed, and they're not going to get in the CWL for something that they weren't even involved with. DT also, it's not their fault that they're getting a free victory. However, that's not the case. The CWL has stepped in and said, you know what, we realize that this is a problem. We realize that Karma's suspension kind of makes this whole thing a lot more awkward than it should be. And so they step in and say, you know what, we're not going to hinder DT and Luminosity. We're not going to hinder the rest of the league because of Optic Gaming's problems. I'm saying problems because it's what their opinions are on the whole situation. So we're not going to let this affect the entire league. So what we're going to do is instead reschedule this matchup so that Optic Gaming, when they play against their next team, it's actually going to be against 100 Thieves, meaning that their suspension and their forfeit is going to come against a squad who's already not, it doesn't affect them whatsoever. It's not going to affect 100 Thieves, whether they get a free win versus Optic Gaming or not. It doesn't matter. And now later, Optic is going to have to play against DT, but yet there's no suspensions for this. It's only a 1-game suspension, meaning that DT is going to have to play against actually Optic Gaming. They're going to have to play in a real matchup versus Optic, which is going to be incredibly difficult for them. And this is such an awkward spot that we're in right now, because you have one side that says, hey, this is not a fair thing whatsoever, because, hey, you guys banned Karma. That's how the rules have to result. Like, you cannot change the schedule because of, this particular instance. And then you also have the other side who says, you have Optic Gaming who obviously got suspended, and you don't want to hinder the other 2 teams who are in the 8th and 9th spot because it's something that they weren't even involved with. So I can see both sides, right? I can see both sides. I can see DT's point where they're saying, you know what? That's life, right? Because you have a team who obviously did something wrong. They need to get punished for it. And I've been seeing Killa constantly tweet out, I hope he doesn't get fined or anything like that because it's definitely possible. So he's ticked off, and Kill is saying that I can't believe they would reschedule a matchup when it's come down to suspension and stuff like that. But when in reality, throughout this entire Stage 1, Stage 2, the Call of Duty World League frequently has been making schedule changes, and whether that's been for whatever reason, Optic has talked about the difficult week that they had. I believe in their first 2 matchups, I believe they played like Rise and Envy to make it entertaining. That's why we have Optic Gaming matches when it comes down to Thursday, the match of the week, because everyone wants to see a good matchup. It's not just the fact of, oh, we somehow lucked out in getting the match of the week to be, a good game, because they can change the schedule however they want to, and they've been doing that throughout this entire league, whether Stage 1 or Stage 2. I noticed it, I believe, in like Stage 1, Week 3, when there was supposed to be a certain matchup, and they changed the schedule, I believe, like the day or two before, and it resulted in something else. And they do that with certain things in mind when it comes down to player scheduling, when it comes down to, just overall generality of what matches are going to be more tightly contested, more interesting. They're going to say those toward the end, toward the middle, maybe even have a good one at the beginning, to space it out, to make you want to watch the entire thing. That's a business, right? That's something that they can do. They can legally do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that throughout the entire rest of the regular season. When it comes down to the end, though, that's when it becomes awkward, because now a strategy that they've been using throughout this entire season is now being outed by fans who are in outrage because, you know what, you guys did this certain thing. Now you've got to live by those replications. You got to live by the things that you guys already did. Now, the Call of Duty World League is obviously getting a lot of hate for this. They're getting a lot of hate for the reasons why they're doing this. And generally, at least in my opinion, I like the idea from where they were coming from and saying, you know what, we're not going to hurt another team. We're not going to make another team suffer for another team's behavior, I guess you could say. So to me, I see that point, but I also see the point of the fans. I see the point from DT, from certain people on Reddit as well, who are saying, you know what, that's your fault. That's a problem that you guys have to live with, and say, you know what, we made this decision. We have to stand by it. We can't change the schedule when something else happens. But after all this, all the things that I brought up, all the arguments that are going on right now in the CWL, and you're asking yourself, should the CWL in some ways change the schedule? Is that a right decision to make? And in generality, it might be saying, in one position, I could look at it and say, you know what, you shouldn't be hindering DT and LG for Optic Gaming's mishaps that they have with the CWL. Their arguments with the CWL that shouldn't affect other teams, which I personally agree with. But you also have to look at it as far as fairness and say, you know what, DT hasn't actually had a benefit from a forfeit yet, when in reality, LG got a free victory versus Optic Gaming a couple of weeks prior. So, in generality, it would be fair, because DT would also get a free victory versus Optic Gaming, because LG did a couple of weeks ago. So, the CWL, you can't win. If you're the Call of Duty World League right now, you cannot win. Whatever you would have done, if you would have kept the schedule the same, if you would have changed the schedule, which obviously they have, you cannot win in this situation because of connectivity issues, because it's an online league. We're never going to have a perfect result. We're never going to have a perfect stat line that shows exactly what we expect to see, because when it comes down to, I have a list of team records when it comes down to every game type. Those aren't accurate because some teams got free victories. So when it comes down to casting, when it comes down to analytics, when it comes down to analysts, when it comes down to events, not every stat is going to tell the truth, because in generality, Luminosity Gaming probably wouldn't have beat Optic Gaming. If 100 Thieves is going to play against Optic Gaming and they have to forfeit, Optic probably would have beat them. So there's a number of different problems with the online league that have happened. So throw your opinions out the window at this point, because there are a number of different things that we can take into it and say, oh, LG technically got more free victories throughout the entire regular season than DT did. So technically, DT, it would be fair if they got a free victory versus Optic Gaming, because LG did. Well, so in my opinion, I'm just going to give my opinion right now. Should they have changed the schedule? In my opinion, no, because we've had so many issues throughout the regular season that you really can't justify changing the schedule again. Now, granted, have you changed the schedule throughout the entire season? Yes, they've done it many times, probably more than I can count on two hands that they've changed the schedule. But now that people are starting to realize it, and when it comes down to, an issue that we've had with Optic Gaming, when it comes down to what's going to happen as far as the league is considered, who's going to be in the top 8, now people are starting to obviously recognize that and say, hey, this is not fair. DT technically deserved to get a free victory versus Optic Gaming, because that's how the schedule was set up. But in reality, would they have changed the schedule regardless of what would have happened with Optic Gaming? Say that Optic Gaming's thing never happens. Will they have changed the schedule in the first place where DT now plays them second? We don't know. That's the thing. We don't know. That's why we need communication with the league. We need all this stuff to be resolved. And in my opinion, we would never be having this argument right now as if we had communication with the players, however this ends up lining out, because it has to if we want to see Call of Duty grow. We need to have a group of players, have a union in some ways, to have a spokesperson come to the Call of Duty World League and say, here are our issues, we need to work this out, or the league is going to be taken as a joke. Call of Duty will not grow, because if we're going to have consistency when it comes down to player fines, when it comes down to consistent player forfeits, team forfeits, no one is ever going to get their way But at least if we can have communication go on to where both sides can realize, hey, the Call of Duty World League, they're trying to run a business here. They're trying to make money. So if players are forfeiting, if teams are forfeiting, if they can't get online, in some ways the Call of Duty World League has to continue on with their schedule because they're trying to make money. They're trying to make money from a stream here. And sometimes you can't change that. But we should at least try our best to make it as competitive as possible to where we're at least tending to each other's needs as much as we possibly can. And I know I sound like I'm sugarcoating this right now, but we have to have something like this happen in order for anything to get done. And like I said, I don't know how that's going to happen, but we really, really do need something. So, guys, if you'd like to talk about this and continue this conversation down in the comments, feel free to do so. Try not to slander anyone else's opinions or anything like that. Just feel free to voice your opinion, maybe even about some things that I talked about. I tried to, in some ways, bring up both opinions, both perspectives, but also give my own throughout the entire thing of saying, you know what, the Call of Duty World League, they're not going to be right because of the amount of connectivity issues that we've had because it's an online league. I'm not defending the CWL. I'm not defending players. I'm just bringing up both arguments and trying to generalize a fix to what has been this kind of broken stage 2 that we've had so far. So like I said, guys, feel free to talk about this down in the comments. If you guys did enjoy the video or at least learn something new, if you guys would like to leave a like, it's obviously very much appreciated. If you guys would like to subscribe as well, it's obviously very much appreciated. When it comes to topics like this, I'm always down to make a video. I always want to make videos, and I'm obviously going to be starting to make more content as time does go on when things do start to arise. And when it comes down to events like Orlando, I know Gfinity is going on this weekend, and we talk about a number of different stuff. Like I said, we need something to change. We need something to happen. Who's going to step into that role? I don't know. Maybe it'll even be you. Who knows? But still, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys all later. Have a fantastic day. And until next time, peace out.